The things that we know is that our worldviews are really closely associated with our sense of identity or of who we are, our sense of self. And the psychological research tells us that when our worldviews are challenged, or when our identity is challenged, we might respond as if our very life has been threatened. So, you know, the time when you've said something innocently and all of a sudden you get this really strong reaction back, it's probably because we've threatened some aspect of a person's identity or their worldview. And I know we've probably all had that same experience the other way. Someone has said something and we find ourselves reacting all out of proportion to whatever the comment was. And that's partly because, again, something in us has felt threatened. And that's the response tends to be defensiveness. And one of the things that we know about worldviews is that our worldviews influence how we act in the world, and how we act in the world gives us information about our worldviews. And so that information that comes back might reinforce our worldviews, in which case we tend to become more attached to them. And also, the more we hang out with people who have a worldview like us, the more we tend to believe our worldview is the right worldview. And if the information that comes back from our actions challenges our worldview, then typically we don't go, oh, that's interesting, I should explore that. We tend to go, that can't be right. And then again, we're more likely to become attached to our worldview. That's why our invitation really is into curiosity. It says, why am I reacting the way I am? What am I reacting to? And as I put in the chat box when Jerry showed that picture, could there be a different story here? It's really that kind of invitation. Can move to the next one. Because not only do we have our own individual worldview and identity, but some of that is shaped by group identity. So what groups are we associated with or not associated with? And if we go back to like the very early days of human civilization, there was safety in numbers. If I was in a group, I was more likely to be protected from the elements, from animals, from, whatever might be out there. And that carries forth to today, even though it looks a little bit different today than it might have looked back when we were on the tundra and we didn't have nearly the same kinds of protective mechanisms that we have today. But also being part of a group gives us a sense of belonging. And Jerry's going to talk about in-groups and out-groups later, so I'm not going to talk about that right now. But one of the things that happens is that when we begin to challenge a group, we're not just challenging individual identity now, but there's a bigger thing that's going on here. So we will tend to defend the worldviews and perspectives of the groups that we identify with, even when we don't identify with every single thing that that group does or believes. And if you think about families, kind of one of the things I come back to, we might have a lot of infighting in our family, but someone from outside of our family wants to pick up that thread and pull on it. We're like, yeah, no. When we're talking a force from outside, I'm with my family. And when I'm within my family, then those conversations might look different. So that's part of that group identity. And one of the other things that can happen here with group identity is that we may find ourselves defending the views of a group, even if we don't really believe it, because we feel the need to defend the group perspective. And so if we think about when we're working with group dynamics or we're facilitating, sometimes this kind of thing is going on in that conversation. So we'll have to diffuse some of those situations when they show up, especially if people become pretty entrenched in a view or in defensiveness, is we want to ask good questions out of curiosity, not questions disguised as like what the heck were you thinking around this? And we want to talk less and listen more.